Hi, I'm Chris Jussel, and this stop on the Antiques Roadshow is Kansas City, Missouri. Here in the heartland of America, our antiques experts will be on the lookout for Chinese porcelain, some fine textiles, and I bet we'll see a good pocket watch. We never know what we'll see, but we'll find out in a few moments. It's the Antiques Roadshow. Stay tuned.
Antiques Roadshow is made possible by the Chubb Group of insurance companies, who, along with 3,000 independent agents and brokers, can insure your world.
And by the annual financial support from viewers like you.
Kansas City, Missouri, in the literal heart of America, was once territory inhabited by Indians, the Kansas people. Kansas City became a great cattle town, and then grew into one of the great hubs of American enterprise and American culture, eventually known as much for its great tradition in jazz and art as for its stockyards. The Nelson Atkins Museum of Art is one of the finest museums in America. William Rockhill Nelson was a newspaper publisher who found turn-of-the-century Kansas City so commonplace and ugly, as he said, that he left the proceeds of his considerable estate to buy works of art for the public to enjoy. Mary Atkins was a former school teacher who managed to leave $300,000 for this building, which was begun in 1930. This museum houses one of the great collections of American paintings in the country. It covers the spectrum from the 18th century to the 20th and includes such representative works by Missouri artists George Caleb Bingham and Thomas Hart Benton. But what the Nelson Atkins Museum is most noted for, famous for, is that it houses one of the great collections of Chinese art and artifacts in the world. And remarkably, it was all put together in a few short years in the early 1930s, when we were in the depths of the Depression. This collection is due in large measure to the efforts in the 1930s of Lawrence Sickman, a Harvard Yenching Fellow, recruited by the museum's trustees to buy art in China. Sickman scoured much of northern China on foot and provided the foundation for this great collection, 5,000 objects dating from as early as 1300 BC.
Here we are at the Kansas City Convention Center. Inside, our experts are already waiting for people to bring in their antiques from all around the Kansas City area.
With us today, as always, are specialists from the country's top auction houses, joined by an outstanding group of independent auctioneers, dealers, and appraisers who have come from near and far to be at this event. Now, let's listen in on our first appraisal.
It was in my mother-in-law's estate. The only connection we could make, possibly, was the fact that her uncle had been in the military. He served in the Boxer Rebellion, and we have letters from him that were written in 1900 from China and the Philippine Islands. Okay. And we thought that there might be some connection there, but we have no proof of it.
What I thought would be interesting to tell you today is that this piece is actually a Japanese piece.
Japanese?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, it's very interesting. We have a figure here. Now, this is out of carved ivory. You can see that the figure has some damage. You know, he has the one toe here.
Yeah.
We call this figure okimono. And I see that you have him attached here with a piece of gold chain.
Yes.
Now, is that from a necklace or something of yours?
Yes,
okay.
I know that is not original.
Okay, so we've attached him and kind of made him into like a driver of something like this.
Right.
In my opinion, this never really came with this sculpture at all. I think it was a piece that somebody at one point just said, well, wow, that would look really nice there.
Oh, really?
Maybe at one point it had someone riding atop here, but I don't think that was the case. What I find also interesting about this is that it has a custom-made wooden base, and then it lifts out The Japanese are very big on ornamentation and packaging and things like this. And this has a really wonderful hand-carved base here that was custom done for this piece.
Yes.
Now, something else that's really interesting about this is the quality of this Japanese bronze. Now, we see Chinese bronze and we see Japanese bronze. The quality of this bronze work, if you look into the detail, into the twigs
Yes.
that are being carried by the beast of burden here, it's just very finely cast and very finely done. But another real telltale sign with Japanese bronze especially is right down here. If you can take a look, there's a little signature mark there.
Yes.
It's a very, very clear signature tag and something that is really found only in the better quality Japanese bronzes. A piece like this in today's auction market would probably sell in the range of $2,000 to $3,000. So I just thought maybe you'd want to maybe reconsider the old chain here
Oh, sure.
and enjoy your one piece of Japanese okimono.
So he wasn't the driver of the...
I don't believe that was the case. If he was, he probably rested here.
Oh.
So anyways, there's your Japanese okimono, which is probably worth between $200 and $300 because of the damage, and a really nice quality Japanese bronze. So,
All right. Well, thank you very much, Joe.
anytime. Thank you.
I just dropped into an antique shop while I was waiting for an appointment. It was presented to me as costume jewelry, and I knew it wasn't.
Did you pay a lot for it?
They had $20 on it, and I got it for $18.
Wow. Well, I would say you got a bargain, Peggy. This is a beautifully executed ring. It's called a filigree. It's an open work ring, and it's die struck. And when they die struck these rings, they put a lot of pressure to strike it out. And when they put this pressure on it, it actually changed the molecular structure of the ring, and it made it more dense. But consequently, that's why you have the beautiful detail that this ring has. It's very crisp. This ring is circa 1920s, 30s, and it looks just as good as if it were something made yesterday because of the construction method. The stone itself is a man-made stone, which was not unusual for that time period. This is the 1920s-30s. It appears to be at least 18-karat gold. And yes, 18, at least 18-karat gold. And I would say the mounting itself would be valued at, well, the price on it would be between $300 and $400.
You're kidding.
No.
You're kidding.
So I think I should go to sales with you, Peggy.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're kidding.
No.
And it was presented as costume jewelry.
That's what makes it a treasure hunt, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And this was the owner of the shop.
Well, that just goes to show that just because you're in the business doesn't mean you know everything.
Right.
A violin, absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about the instrument, Mr. Mattis, where it came from that you know?
Yeah, it was my grandfather's. He had brought it to the United States when he immigrated here in 1898.
And was he a musician, a violin?
Yeah, he was a musician,
Let's take a closer look at it, sort of help us maybe identify where this instrument is from. First thing I like to do is look at the outline of the instrument, its shape. Quite often the back will tell us something else. And looking at the back of the instrument, I'm noticing it's a very round form. All the shapes and curves very complementary to each other. And in the outline of what we call the Amati outline. But we look at it a little bit closer and help us identify it. You know, I'm noticing here there's a wonderful original saddle here, which is where the tail gut wraps over the end of the instrument to protect it. And I think looking at it a little closer, you know, materials used in an instrument often help us identify where it's from. And what I want to do here is try to figure out what the purfling might be made of. And probably best see it here on the back. I'm going to use a loop here to take a peek. The purfling material is beech. So I kind of put some of the little parts together here to help identify it. The last thing I'm going to look at here is the label, and most people often say, well, gee, why is that? But let's just take a peek in here. It is labeled Johannes Baptist Freimaurer, Florente, anno 17, and it looks like 52, though actually I have my doubts on that. From the workmanship and from the materials used, I would most likely place this instrument in the very early 19th century, either Flemish work or French. Labels are made of paper, and they're as interchangeable as a pair of shoes. We can take one label out of one violin and put it in another, and thusly lead people to believe that the instrument is from elsewhere. I think to really determine whether that is an original Freimaurer label, I think it should be removed and examined. But nonetheless, I think the parts aggregately are interesting. An original Florentine label with though a very nice early 19th century violin. If it was a real Florentine instrument of this period, it would probably be worth between $30,000 and $40,000. I think what some unscrupulous character has done here is taken a real Italian label out of a real Italian violin, put it into a French violin, passed it off as Italian, and out there exists a real Italian violin that stands on its own merits. So they make two violins out of one. Important point.
Well, we're standing here right now with something very exciting for everyone from Kansas City to see. It's an original Thomas Hart Benton, who's a local artist. And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your history with the artist.
Tom Benton was an outdoorsman. My father was a great duck hunter and fisherman, and he and Tom Benton went out and spent a lot of time fishing and hunting together. So basically, this picture reflects Tom Benton's love of the outdoors. And this is Wyoming. This particular picture is the Grand Tetons, and it reflects the kind of feeling he had for the western part of the United States.
Great. Well, it's nice that you have this history with the artist, that you knew him and that you got the picture directly from him. It has a nice clear signature here with the date, 55. So for anybody who might have a Thomas Hart Benton at home and they want to compare the signature, that's a pretty good one to take a look at. It's also great that you know that this is the Grand Tetons from Wyoming. It always helps when you know the actual location of the landscape. This is a work that's done in egg tempera, which is a water-based paint that the egg yolk has been added to, which Benton used a lot. And we have a French term that we use when we're talking about a work like this, which is called en grisaille, which means that the work is done in black, white, and gray. So we would call this tempera en grisaille. And I think that maybe if we were to sell this at auction, it might bring between $10,000 and $20,000.
Thank you very much.
And this, I think, is kind of a typical example of that.
Well, we've seen some wonderful antiques here today in Kansas City, and there's more to come. But first, here's George Juno and Russ Pritchard with a little postcard from the Wild West. Did you know there's a museum near here in Liberty, Missouri, devoted entirely to the Jesse James gang of bank robbers?
On February 13th of 1866, Frank James and another member of the gang came into this store to execute the first bank robbery in United States history. They came up to this counter to exchange a larger bill for smaller ones and then drew their guns and robbed the bank of almost $72,000. The bank closed and never recovered.
And the weapons they used would have looked like these. These three pistols were all manufactured during the Civil War and would have been used by Frank and Jesse during their service with Quantrell. The first one is a .44 caliber Remington pistol. The last one is a Colt .44 caliber pistol. But the middle pistol is the one that Jesse preferred. This is a Colt 1851 Navy.
This pistol was made in Hartford, Connecticut. The James gang wanted the finest in firearms, even if they were made by the enemy.
I'm looking at certainly the oldest item that I've had a chance to look at today, and it's great to be here with you and to look at this chair. Tell me, how did you come across the chair?
It came out of an estate sale in a small town not too far from here, and
was kind of a parlor game to figure out what it was. People who were interested in furniture kind of enjoy looking at it.
So you've had people that have visited you have come over and you've said, come on, you take a guess at where it was made.
You think you know stylistically furniture and so on? Right. Tell me about it.
And what have you come up with so far? Have you had people say that it's Czechoslovakian or Russian or?
Well, no, typically English I've heard, and early 17th century to arts and crafts in the 19th century.
Right.
Yep.
Believe it or not, the chair was made in Bermuda.
Huh.
And when it was a British colony, which it still is a British colony, I understand, but probably in the 1730s or 1740s. And Bermuda was actually a source of a lot of English furniture. While it was a colony, the mother country would send these Queen Anne chairs to Bermuda. By the 1730s, Bermuda was making its own works of art like this, just as furniture to export and furniture for their own use. So it's come a long ways from Bermuda. Wouldn't you love to know how it came all the way from Bermuda to
Missouri?
To Missouri. Well, it's a Queen Anne chair, okay? And the great thing about it is that you see this S-curve, and this curve really started first in China, but then in England in the late 17th century, and it's really known as Hogarth's curve. Hogarth wrote a book in 1753 called The Analysis of Beauty, and in the book, he says that the most beautiful line in nature is this S-curve, and it's based on the line in a woman's back, that wonderful line. And that's why I kind of like that line a lot. That's why Queen Anne's my favorite style. But it also fits the back very well, because your shoulders are up here, the lower back is down here, and it supports the back and fits the curve.
It fits very nicely.
So here you have that nice S-curve, that kind of sexy curve on this leg. Very nice peak knee coming down to really what is known in the trade as a Flemish foot. And it's joined by these stretchers, which I love the way that they're worn. Isn't that great? This is from over 250 years of feet, probably 18th century shoes at one time, and now 20th century. Did you ever put your shoes there?
Yes, I did.
They did, okay. You probably are wondering, how do we know Bermuda? I mean, yeah. The one big giveaway is that it's made of cedar.
Oh, is that
It's actually cedar wood.
That's why no one could guess the wood then. No one's looking for cedar.
Exactly, and it's distinctive for Bermuda furniture. They had this native wood there. So they made these chairs in the English style in the wood that they had locally, which is cedar. And there are people that collect only Bermuda furniture. So this really makes it quite really a rare item. But I'm going to tell you, there's one thing about it that's happened. Well, first of all, the crest rail broke off at one time. It might have fallen backwards, some kind of a brawl, and you could see these repairs. Do you see how graceful this is? But then you get up here and it's kind of clunky.
Right.
What they also did.
Is this cedar still up here?
This looks like a hardwood, and I'm not sure it's cedar. It could be a maple. What they did though is they put the splat back on upside down. So that's why the curve is a bit funny. You see, this kind of should be out here, and so that your shoulders would go back. So they kind of said, it probably broke. Somebody stuck it on and said, how does this damn thing go? You know, and they finally got it upside down.
That's great in profile.
Isn't that neat? Isn't that a neat profile? So that's really the way the splat would have been originally, and it would have made these kind of little Tweety bird heads at the top up in this area. These little, I always think of it as like a little bird's beak. Doesn't it look like that? Right. A little bit. So if the chair hadn't been repaired, its value would be probably about $4,000 or $5,000 as a rare Bermuda chair. Because of the crest rail being replaced, it's probably worth still to a collector around $1,500 to $2,000.
You have a very nice coverlet here. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, I bought it at an antique mall up in St. Joseph, Missouri for $12.50.
Did they tell you anything when they sold it to you, or
no.
Nothing, huh?
It was just at one of the booths, and so I just saw it and I picked it up and took it up and paid for it, and that was it.
Well, what you have here is a 19th century American coverlet, overshot or double weave. They were fairly common throughout the Americas, very much in the Midwest, throughout the mid to late 19th century. Now, it was woven in a number of different colors, as you see here, blue and red, two of the very typical colors, and then a sort of off-white background. The pattern here is very typical 19th century American pattern, thistle and column and overall floral pattern. You'll notice here in the center that it is sewn together.
Right.
Now, they were often woven in two panels and then sewn together, so that was very common. That's not a repair. Oftentimes, the weaver would indicate their name or place or time in the corner. Sometimes they would have big American eagles in the corners, and George Washington was a very favorite of the weavers of that time. This one does not have that. It's a very, very nice quilt. Even in its condition, is worth $600 to $800.
Really?
So I think you've done very, very nicely, and you have a nice piece of Americana.
It came over from Thüringer, Germany, with my wife's family, and it was handed down from generation to generation from there.
It's from probably the most famous of all the German porcelain factories. It's from Meissen, which is the factory that started European porcelain. Now, this porcelain dates from the early 20th century, somewhere around 1900. Some pieces are a little later than others. But if we turn the pieces over, that it will indicate to us that it is from Meissen. It has the two blue dots right on the very bottom, which indicates that it's a mark prior to 1920. Now, there are some other pieces, like this coffee pot, which is, I'll take the lid off so it doesn't fall off. Here you see, you don't have the two blue baubles on the bottom, and you have very long, straight, slightly curved lines. This tells me that it's past 1920, probably somewhere in the 30s or 40s. Now, the other thing that makes this service very interesting to me is that none of this is first quality porcelain. And what that indicates is, we'll go back to the bowl. If you see, these have two slashes through the Meissen mark. That means that it's double canceled. Then you have some pieces that are even worse than that. You have pieces here that have 4 canceled marks through it. That means that it really, really did not go past quality control.
I see.
This blue is much too light. The flowers are a little on the small side. They're not painted correctly. And there are things that are wrong with this pot. So this didn't pass through the quality control. And so to a varying degree, each of these pieces have something slightly wrong with it. Meissen at the moment is an extremely popular porcelain. How many of these cups and saucers? 6
Oh,
or
at least
so?
5 or 6, yes.
6 of them. So I would say that if this was not canceled ware, which is what you call it from canceled ware, I think you're looking at somewhere around around $5,000 for the whole service. But because it has these canceled marks on it, that value is really downgraded to somewhere around $2,000 to $3,000 for the whole
Still
service.
not all. That's quite a treasure.
Have you kept these around,
yes.
or do you use them ever?
No, we never use them. It's basically been in storage, and we have intentions of selling it at some time in the future. But this is quite an astonishment to find out what these are worth and how well they've been preserved.
Well, I bought it in Glasgow round about one time I was visiting my family in Paisley, and I bought it there in an antique shop. I just took a fancy to it. I wasn't a watch collector at that time, but since then I bought more of them. But I was intrigued by the fact that it was a Pusey, the chain-driven watch, which are only antiques now.
It's a beautiful watch. As you can see, you've got a wonderful dial, which is really, really nice.
I thought, when I bought it, I thought the gold, I thought it was gilt or brass. And I didn't know till I brought it back to Kansas City and the watchmaker worked on it and cleaned it. He said, no, that's gold.
Correct. Yeah, nice gold numbers on the front of the case and a beautiful design. And you did have it worked on and all put back into original condition.
Yes, all cleaned up, yes.
Great.
Yes.
I'm going to open the inside of the watch and give a little bit of detail. If we open the inside of the watch here, you can see a wonderful hallmarks. And based on these hallmarks, which we had talked about earlier, you had stated that you felt that it was done about how old based on the hallmarks?
Somewhere between 1881 and 1885.
Okay. Basically, based on the hallmarks in the inside, the case is really about 1841.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit earlier than you thought. Right. And the beautiful movement on the back, it is chain driven. It is done in Glasgow. And that was common. They have done different cases. Different watchmakers would make the case, and a different person would do the insides. And as we see here by the key, you would go ahead and turn the key to be able to keep the time.
Move the hands with the key too.
Exactly.
There's a small square nut right on the hand there.
Which happens to be here.
Yes, use it
to be able to wind the watch.
Yes, you have to do it to the left.
Correct. Always counterclockwise, which is important because a lot of people think clockwise.
And sometimes, though, that someone will try it, and if they don't know that that it winds the other way, you can use that to your advantage in buying it. You can say it doesn't work.
You know, the tricks of the trade, yes. The one thing that's interesting is that the case was done in London, and it is a London case.
That's right.
You can tell by the hallmarks, which are important. A wonderful watch, and you have great family value to it because it sounds like it's sentimental to you because you did buy it in Glasgow. Auction estimate on something like this is going to be around the $1,200 to $1,500 range.
Right, that much?
Beautiful. Beautifully done.
Well, I'm not that sentimental. I'll sell it.
You will. Okay, great.
Seventh is printed in Austria, and this one's from New York.
We're going to take another short break away from the floor here at the Kansas City Convention Center. There's a wonderful museum here in Kansas City devoted entirely to toys and games and dolls and miniatures. And yesterday, we tagged along with Noel Barrett as he went to visit this museum.
You know, when I found out the Roadshow was coming to Kansas City, I said the one place we have to visit is the Toy and Miniature Museum that was started about 20 years ago by Mary Harris Francis and her partner Barbara Marshall. And so here we are, and I'd like to introduce you to Mary Harris, who's going to maybe tell us how she started this incredible place, which I have to say, I've been a toy dealer for 20 years, and a place like this is just Mecca to me. I mean, you never get a chance to see this many wonderful things under one place. So Mary, tell me, how did this all come about?
Well, actually, people didn't think we were ever going to get it done. And we might not have done it if we had known all the trials and tribulations. But it's really a labor of love, and we had outgrown our houses. And our husbands encouraged us when we had this idea. And it's a not-for-profit museum, and we've given our collections to the foundation. We feel like it's our gift to the community, and my thrusts are, of course, the antique houses and all the toys that go with them and so forth. And I feel this is very educational for children because it's really a history lesson in how people lived and played and so forth.
You call it the Toy and Miniature Museum. Well, what is really the difference between, say, a toy, which is obviously a small thing, and what you call a dollhouse miniature?
Well, actually, miniatures have to be perfect in scale, and they have to work, and even the fibers and the wood and all that sort of thing has to be exactly in scale. These kind of things are toys. They're antique toys, they're in doll's houses, but their playability is what is important. People often think that small things are miniatures. That's not true. We use different criteria for it. And the main thing is scale. 1 inch to a foot, 1/2 inch to a foot, and it can go smaller, but everything has to be exact.
Now, the miniatures, as I understand it, which is a major portion of the museum, a lot of them are contemporary, made by...
Yes. The miniatures today that we call miniatures are done by contemporary artists, and they're still working, and of course they have wonderful tools and that sort of thing. But my thrust are the antique toys. I love children, and I love the way they played with things, or parents made things for their children to play with, and I love a dollhouse that's been made by a grandfather, that sort of thing.
Well, you know, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for allowing us to come here and bring this wonderful museum and show it to our Roadshow audience. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Thanks, Noel. That's an incredible museum. We're back here on the floor of the Kansas City Convention Center, where Antiques Roadshow specialists have been looking at hundreds of items brought in by people from all around the Kansas City area. For those of you at home, we hope to see you at a future Antiques Roadshow event when we come to your city. Now, let's go on to the next appraisal.
Amy, we have spread out before us here what I consider a world-class collection of
pinback buttons. And I'd like to know where these came from.
My grandfather. And my grandfather saved absolutely everything in his life. And they just sat in his office desk for years until my grandmother died in 1992, and we closed our house in 94, and I'm a pack rat like him, and so I got him.
Well, what we have here are, in the first area, are, of course, political buttons. And we're all familiar with political buttons. They're still made to this day. The political button, as we know it, was the first campaign was McKinley in 1894, was because the pinback button, as you see it here, the celluloid pinback button, was patented in 1892 by Whitehead and Hogue. And the first candidate to use it was McKinley. We don't go back that far with this, really, but that's not really relevant, because obviously he started collecting a little later. These are pinback buttons, but what's interesting in the politicals are these little fellas, which are called tabs, obviously, because of that. And these did not survive as much as the pinback button. They have increased dramatically in value. And Roosevelt tabs, of course, Roosevelt ran 4 times, so there's a lot of buttons from his campaigns. Roosevelt tabs are going anywhere from $50 to $100 a piece.
Wow.
Another area of interest here is the advertising buttons. Companies would put out buttons to advertise their products. This is a very beautiful button, the Yale motorcycle. A Yale motorcycle button with its original backing in mint condition is worth close to $100. A die-cut button, and this is for teddy bear bread. This button sells in the range between $200 and $300 for one small die-cut button. These buttons here are baseball buttons, and they were premiums that came in packages of Sweet Caporal cigarettes. I'm hard-pressed to put values on them because the values have been escalating at such a rate that to jump in and say that this is worth so much is difficult. There was an auction a few years ago of a major collection where these buttons went anywhere from $50 to $200 a piece.
Oh.
I think that since then the values have even escalated further.
Wow.
Because very few of these buttons survived, and the conditions on these is just exceptional. And the other areas you have here, these were also premiums, the famous flags. These were the joke buttons, where you got the expressions like 22 Skidoo. These were all the cartoon characters of the time. Pep buttons, Tokyo buttons, Hassan. Those were the cigarettes that created the button.
He was quite a smoker.
Most of these, the non-advertising and the non-political, came from cigarettes. I mean, we'd have to sit down and start adding it all up, but you have thousands of dollars worth of buttons on this table.
That's just amazing.
Well, Phyllis, you brought a very elaborate piece with you today.
It is elaborate. We call it the throne.
How did you come by this piece?
Well, Bob's grandmother had it, and he says she's had it for every bit as long as he can remember. And that's a long time.
And she left it to him?
Well, yeah.
He liked it? Or?
It sort of evolved that he got it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been sort of protecting it. We had it stored in our home, and then we started getting grandchildren, and we sent it to a daughter's house.
Well, it does look like a throne.
It does.
It's interesting the way it's constructed with this X form that folds up.
You know, I wondered about that, if these little businesses come out so it should fold up.
Well, I think that they technically could be undone and the piece could fold up for moving.
Right.
Now, this makes sense when we realize where this piece was made. But it's a nice example of a Syrian chair made in the Middle East.
Wow, really?
And it's all inlaid with brass and mother of pearl. This is a type of thing that would have been sold to people on a trip.
Like a caravan?
Not a caravan, but someone who's on a kind of a grand tour.
Okay.
Seeing the sights.
Okay.
Might bring this back probably in the 1890s. It's got very elaborate inlay. Sometimes it's only bone inlay, and that would have been less expensive than a nice mother of pearl inlaid one. And it's got this nice turned wheel form inside here, which is also something you typically see on Syrian furniture. It's also it's the taste of the times as well, the 1890s, 1900. People were interested in exotic things, and they had kind of what's called Moorish corners. They would take a little part of the drawing room and put their carpets and get their Middle Eastern furniture, maybe some hanging brass lamps and a palm, and they'd have this exotic interior.
They used that or sat there, or was it more for show?
Well, it was kind of for show. They would also sort of entertain there. It was just exotic, and you would have your souvenirs there, and it was
okay. So it was sort of a brag corner, too. I mean, if you went to this place and brought this home, then...
This shows that, one, we've been around the world,
right.
And two, we have taste.
Okay, yeah.
So, had you had any idea of what it might be worth?
Absolutely no idea.
I would probably say, if this were coming up for auction, I would estimate it at about $800 to $1,200. So about $1,000.
Okay. Okay. Well, I have, you know, it's not a surprise because I had absolutely no idea what we had, but I do know that I don't want my grandchildren sitting on it.
Right. Well, I think it's great that you've kept it in such good shape in the family all this time.
Okay.
My great aunt lived in North Hollywood, California, and she had a friend there who gave these to her. That woman, when she was very young, married a European count or some royal personage, and when he died, they were childless. The estate was entailed. This jewelry is all she had. It is my understanding that this originally contained either emeralds or sapphires, and including the family crest on the ring. She fell on hard times. She sold the stones and replaced it with these stones and had the crest carved into the stone on the ring.
And didn't you tell me as well that she worked on films in Hollywood? She was a historical advisor to the film?
That's right. They went through a period in the 40s with Essex and Elizabeth and those kinds of films, and she gave them court protocol and stuff from...
So she really knew what she was doing when she was putting the costumes together or the jewelry together for a show.
Right.
Well, she showed her knowledge in terms of these pieces of jewelry, because when she replaced the stones, she copied the crest that was on the original stone, as you had originally indicated, and she kept the integrity of the piece by replicating the crest that would have been on the original piece. Sideways, you see the beautiful open-work gallery that was done at the beginning of the 19th century. And this was done by hand, and it's beautifully crafted. This was obviously made by someone who was a fine jeweler, because the workmanship is so good, and it would have been in keeping with the stone and the valuable stone that you were talking about that was in here originally. And when you look at the brooch, if you hold the brooch up, you will see that the motifs that are in the ring, the little floral motifs, are repeated in the brooch. And the geometric quality is repeated in the brooch again, so that everything about this shows that the pieces were made at the same time. Do you have any idea of how much this is worth?
No, I know that the stones are not valuable.
Well, they're a pretty color for a citrine. They're a nicer color than is usually on the market. What do you think that they're worth?
Maybe $500 for the pair.
$500 for the pair. Well, it's my pleasure to tell you that a pair, this ring and this brooch together are probably worth about $3,000.
No kidding.
Yeah, because of this beautiful workmanship that I pointed out to you, because of how finely crafted this is, the integrity of the piece, and how uncommon it is to find jewelry that hasn't been damaged or changed or altered from the beginning of the century. So you're very lucky to have this set, and I'm so pleased that you brought this today to show it to me and to share it with me.
Me too.
Because I've seen a little bit of history.
It was sold, it was made probably around 1900.
Now, if you're interested in silver, Christopher Hartop of Christie's has a few tips you might find useful.
So there you are, Chris, at the flea market, deciding whether to buy this. How do you know if it's silver or silver plate? Well, the first thing that might give you a clue is the mark on it. This piece is a piece of 20th century silver plate. It says EP on it. That stands for electroplate. That's a pretty good giveaway that it's plated. Sometimes, though, you're not lucky enough to have marks on the object, and you may have to just handle it and very carefully look at it to get an idea of whether it's silver or silver plate. In this case, if we look at the base of it, there's a little bit of what we call bleeding, which is where the copper, which is the base metal, is showing through red. So we can be pretty certain by seeing that this is in fact a piece of silver plate. Now, a lot of people call this type of object Sheffield or Sheffield plate. In fact, that's not correct to say that. Sheffield plate was something which was invented in England about 250 years ago. This example is a good wine cooler made in Sheffield plate about 1820. A lady just brought this in actually to have it appraised. She's still got some of her flower arrangement stuff in it. But this is typical of the process of Sheffield plating, where they took sheets of silver and sheets of copper and they hammered them together till they literally fused, and then they used it to make an object just as they would out of solid silver. Because of that, you're looking at actual sterling silver on the body of the vase here. And if we take a piece of real silver, this is solid silver, this is 18th century, a nice can that somebody brought in, we can see it's got that same warm color to it. That's what a collector of Sheffield plate really looks for. Now, if we look at this piece of electroplate, this is made by the modern electroplating process, which was started about 100 and something years ago. It looks quite different. It's got a very hard, very shiny surface, and it doesn't have that warm color that you expect from Sheffield plate. So if you're offered this in the flea market, don't pay more than maybe $10 or $15 for it. But if you see a nice piece of Sheffield plate like this, go for it. A pair of these is probably worth maybe $3,000 to $5,000.
John, tell us about this liquor case apothecary collection that you brought in.
Wendell, this was a pre-Revolutionary War traveling wine chest that has been converted to a medicine chest for the Revolutionary War. The pieces that were added, it was, I assume, originally for a dozen bottles. Mm-hmm. And so they built the trays of non-matching wood and outfitted it to carry their small apothecary bottles. We still have the remnants of the old bromides.
How did it come to your family?
I guess generationally, I'm just a caretaker. This was originally given to a female ancestor by George Washington as he was traveling to the Battle of Brandywine and had to lighten up on what they were carrying. And he said he would be back for it, and he never came back.
The Battle of Brandywine was 1777, wasn't it?
Right.
When the American forces were defeated by General Howe. It's interesting, it's oak, has good hardware on it, a lock. Liquor, as well as medicines at that time, were kept under lock and key. Show us the central part there with measuring elements.
Well, I guess that these were the prescription dosages: large vial, small vial, wine glass full, a smaller wine glass full.
Our ancestors drank a lot of the temperance movement that cut back on that. And of course, in that period, corn whiskey was 75 cents a gallon, and these are large decanters. We think they're continental. There are some cases like this at Mount Vernon, numbered and initialed by Washington, and there is one, I'm told, at his headquarters at Valley Forge. But it is interesting that this was left off and then never retrieved without proof positive on an attribution. Something like this, because of its antiquity and interest as a 18th century document, might be worth $2,000 or $3,000. Of course, one hardly knows how to give a value for George Washington. He is so famous, the founding father If that could be proven, it might even be up in the 20 to 30,000 range. A wonderful document telling us something about the medicinal situations as well as the alcoholic republic that, from which we all descended.
Thanks for bringing this today, Lou. Can you tell me what you've brought to us?
Well, I don't know. I want you to tell me. I bought it at an estate sale, and I know that the design works pretty, but I don't know what it is.
This is a cashmere shawl, which was made in India in the early 19th century. These shawls were bought by Englishmen during the colonial period when they were traveling to India and were brought back, used to decorate pianos, used to wear in the cold English winters. They are wonderfully made with pieces of materials patched worked together. These shawls are also reproduced in England in the late 19th century. So there are two schools of them, the original cashmere shawl, which this is, and also the English reproduction. The way to tell the difference between those two shawls is the construction. If you look all along the borders of this piece, you'll see it's intricately pieced and also hand-sewn, whereas the English reproductions are done in great factories in England, and you don't see this piecework. It's really a marvelous piece. It has a great colorful field in it, this blue field, which sets it apart from many of the other cashmere shawls that we see from this period, which are often black and quite dark. You mind me asking what you paid for it?
I gave $15 for it.
You got a great deal.
How great a deal did I get?
Well, I think if this were placed in an antique shop, perhaps, with textiles, or at auction with textiles, you might expect $1,000.
Oh, wow, great.
For a shawl like this.
There is some damage on it. And would that need to be repaired, or?
Well, I guess you're referring to the split here. This is showing us the construction. So this damage doesn't bother me at all. And you can see this shawl has a positive decoration in one corner, and then it hangs into a negative decoration, so that when we flip the two pieces together, we get a shawl that you can wear around.
Let's put it on.
You can wear around and seeing the positive decoration on both sides. So it's very pretty.
What can you tell me about the origin of all these photographs?
This book belonged to my husband's great-grandfather, P.H. Taylor, and he was a school teacher in Minnesota and was volunteered for the first Minnesota Volunteers at that time. And I assume they're all pictures from his time.
Most of the images in this album are from the 1st Minnesota. The 1st Minnesota was a very famous regiment during the Civil War, and these are all Civil War period images that are in here. The 1st Minnesota fought at the Battle of Gettysburg, and on the second day at the Battle of Gettysburg, which was a 3-day battle, the 2nd Minnesota was involved in a charge in which the majority of the regiment was completely decimated, was wiped out. They still remained at Gettysburg for the 3rd day and actually ended up being in a position where they repulsed Pickett's charge. When the Battle of Gettysburg was over, 82% of the regiment had fallen to casualties.
One of them was the P.H. Taylor's brother, Isaac. He was killed at Gettysburg.
Okay. I had brought some of the images out of the album for us to talk about because I think they're an interesting array of a group of pictures. The first here is a sergeant from the 1st Minnesota. But what I found particularly attractive about all these images is that they're all identified on the back. It's very rare to see such a large number of photographs, all specifically identified. This sergeant in particular was killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. We have the colonel here that commanded the 1st Minnesota, a beautiful carte de visite image here. He's wearing a model 1850 foot officer's sword, and we can see his double-breasted frock very, very clearly. It's a great image, and again, it's identified on the back. One of my favorite ones is the middle one here. This is the flag bearer of the 1st Minnesota. And you can see on his kepi up top the insignia with the 1 in the middle and the tattered flags from the Battle of Gettysburg. The 4th picture over here is very, very unique. We have a sergeant here But this little medal that you can see here, it's shaped like a clover. That's known as a Corps badge from the 2nd Corps, and the 1st Minnesota was part of the 2nd Corps. And the first time that you really see Corps badges coming out is during the Civil War. The last image all the way over here is another gentleman. He's wearing an extremely rare medal known as a Kearney medal, and that medal was solid gold, and it was in honor and in memory of General Kearney. The other image down here, this is known as a gem tintype. It's different than these carte de visites up here because it's a tintype. And what's great about this image here is he signed it, yours truly, Dale, at the bottom. I love your photographs, especially the fact that they're all identified, that are all part of the 1st Minnesota. It's an extremely important part of American history. Do you have any idea of their value?
No, I don't.
Many of these images may be the only ones known because it was such a small unit after the Battle of Gettysburg. So I would encourage you not to break them up or to separate them at any time. The value on this grouping as a whole is about $5,000 to $6,000.
I do know that my sons all said no way would they ever sell any of these.
I hope not.
That this was their family history and that they would not sell.
I think that's very important. They should stay together. And you have intermixed in here, besides the soldiers of the 1st Minnesota, you have generals such as General Sedgwick and General McClellan interspersed throughout the book, and I hope that you never sell it. I hope that you keep it together in your family.
To say you brought a wonderful pair of vases, both Tiffany, and you say you bought these in New York some time ago?
I think in the 50s.
In the 1950s?
In the 1950s.
And you want to tell me where you bought them?
I purchased them from Lillian Nassau.
On
who's
Madison
a very,
Avenue?
very famous collector.
She was absolutely the most famous Tiffany dealer in America. Beautiful examples of Louis Comfort Tiffany's work. This one, as you have pointed out, has been damaged and repaired. Has a pond lily decoration and had a chunk right out of it, which was repaired by designing it as though it were another lily pad decoration. Nicely designed and perfect example of Tiffany's work. This one is totally uncompromised and appears to be in beautiful condition. A vase with what Tiffany called a cypriot decoration. He was trying to present a glass that looked as though it was ancient and had been buried in the ground for a number of years. This piece is signed by Tiffany and signed with his name, Louis C. Tiffany, and shows an example of his button pontil, which was very characteristic of his early work. I would say this piece dates to the turn of the century, late 1890s. Lillian had some other pieces that you were interested in?
Yes, she had the wisteria lamp, which is a very famous lamp that I couldn't decide whether to take this vase or to take the lamp.
I see, I see.
Of course, we know what the lamp is worth today.
Well, the lamp, the last time was sold somewhere in the vicinity of $500,000. So it appreciated in value rather
So I think I made the
dramatically.
wrong decision, but at least I made a decision.
You made it. You made a nice choice.
At least I
The
purchased
cypriot piece is worth somewhere in the vicinity of $20,000 at this point in time.
I can't believe that.
And is a wonderful example.
Do we want to say what I paid for it, Lisa?
If you'd like to tell us what you paid for it, we would be delighted
I paid
to know.
around the figure around $500.
Around $500.
And Mrs. Nassau Lillian kind of threw in this piece for fun because I loved it so.
Well, they enhance each other. It's a good example of what happens when a piece is damaged. This one hasn't appreciated in value, essentially, not a great deal. Certainly there are those who would pay as much as $500, $600, $700, perhaps $1,000 for it because it's a good example of Tiffany's work. Thank you for bringing it by.
Well, thank you for coming to Kansas City. It's been a treat for us to have you here.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Antiques Roadshow. We hope you found it informative and fun. We never know what we're going to see, but we find something interesting and valuable everywhere we go. So with thanks to our hosts here in Kansas City, especially the folks at the Convention Center, with thanks to our appraisers, and to all the people who brought us such wonderful antiques to look at here today, I'm Chris Jussel saying so long from all of us on the Antiques Roadshow.